Imagine being so tight with God that he comes to your house, eats there, and then shares with you his plans. Well, this is exactly what God did with Abraham in chapter 18 of Genesis. Once again, God reveals himself to Abraham in a human form. And this time, Abraham was sitting under the shade of a tree, just relaxing, when he sees three men approaching his house. And what I find interesting is that Abraham immediately recognizes that was God. So he showed God the best hospitality possible. And some people can say, maybe Abraham showed this type of hospitality to every visitor that came around his house. Although this can be true, I am sure that Abraham knew how to identify and recognize the presence of God when it was before him. So these men eat here, and God tells Abraham that in a year he would have that promised child that he had been promising for years and years now. God was telling him, this is the moment. This is the time in which that promise will come to you finally. And I can imagine Sarah, being a normal woman, just eavesdropping or trying to hear what these men were saying. And she hears that she's going to have a child. And she laughs. Physically, she could no longer have children. And Abraham was old. She was old. It sounded too crazy. It was also biologically impossible for this to happen. And I'm just going to list for you 3 impossibilities with this promise. Number 1, it was impossible for Sarah to conceive a child. Number 2, it was impossible for Sarah to carry that child for 9 months while the baby extracted from her body all the nutrients it needed to survive and grow. Number 3, it was impossible for Sarah to give birth to a child at her age. Sometimes we judge Sarah and we say, man, Sarah, why were you laughing when God was giving you a promise? But if God comes and promises you that within a year you're going to be the owner of a $1 million Ferrari car, you're probably going to laugh. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have that much money to buy a car like that, so I would definitely laugh a little. And this is what happened to Sarah. But what God was about to do in Abraham and Sarah's lives was truly something divine that couldn't be explained by science or biology. So when God promises you something that sounds unrealistic, weird, or impossible, ask yourself the same question God asked Sarah. Is there anything impossible or too difficult for God? Think about it. So then these men are about to leave when God tells Abraham what he's planning to do. He's going to go to the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and judge them. And if he sees that there's too much sin, he's going to destroy them. And Abraham intercedes for Sodom because this is where his nephew Lot lives. And Abraham tells God, will you destroy the good people along with the bad people? And God promises Abraham that if he finds 50, 40, 30, 20, even 10 good people in that city, that he wouldn't destroy it. This whole encounter between Abraham and God shows us what their relationship was really like. It was an intimate relationship. It was so intimate that God asked himself, will I hide my plans from Abraham? Will I not tell him? He's Abraham. We should seek to have a relationship with God like the one that Abraham had. A relationship where we can distinguish the presence of God when it's right before us. A relationship where we are constantly visited by God. A relationship where he reveals to us his agenda for our lives, for our families, for our cities, for our nations, and for all the nations of the world. An intimate relationship with God.